Alrighty guys, we're going to get started now. Sorry for that slight delay. We want to thank you all for being here this evening. Especially from the team, we want to thank you for the donations that you made to us, for coming here for your extra credit. It really does help us out and we really appreciate you. We know that a lot of people come here, we get it. A lot of people just come here because you want that extra credit. It helps you out at the end of the semester. But hopefully, Forensics is actually a really fun event, and we hope that you see a little taste of what we do here, and you see that it's like a really fun game, and there's a bunch of different genres that we do, and that you're excited about it, hopefully a little bit at least, for our sake as well, and you just want to come out and join us, and that'd be really great. So you're going to hear us make some jokes, and some of that might not make sense because some of them are inside jokes. But the thing is that other than being a really fun activity, you're also going to make really good friends when you're here. And so if you're also looking for nerdy, weird friends that make strange jokes, you should come out for that reason too, because it's a lot of fun just to hang out and get to know people at the JC. So we encourage you to do that. And with that said, I want to introduce you to my fellow MC tonight. This is Nicholas. If you were here last year, which either means you're still in some sort of communications class or you failed last year, either way. No judgment, it's fine. You'll remember his awkward job hosting speech night last year where he wore the same exact outfit.
I washed it.
No judgment. See, interesting things about Nicholas, he's the biggest weeb that I know. He loves Baby Yoda memes. No, like you don't understand. He loves Baby Yoda memes. His screensaver on his phone is literally a Baby Yoda meme. It's not even funny anymore.
The intervention's later, okay?
Oh, you're right. No, he's like one of the best people I know. He loves everybody. He loves babies. He's always wants to be the peacemaker. He always wants to be everybody's friend. He has the moniker among debate tournaments, right? Because you get to know people across the state and the country too. It's a really cool thing about this. He has the awesome moniker as Debate Jesus. So it's the thing he's going for, I guess. So. Yeah, that's Nicholas. Clap, everybody, yay.
All right, everyone, I'm going to introduce my partner here, Kyle. Well, this is Kyle, and again, if you were here last semester, you'd remember him as the one who lost the Canada debate.
Some of you get that.
On our team, Kyle is our friendly neighborhood conservative. With great disagreement comes even greater arguments. Kyle helps make the team group chat look more like a presidential debate than a debate team chat. Multiple people talking at once, one or two guys who actually care about what's going on, and no end in sight. Some of Kyle's most notable contributions to the chat include dense theological arguments, and I'm talking extremely large messages that are probably about as long on the phone screen as I am tall. He's that guy.
And there goes all that ethos I built up with my first speech.
Yeah, well. Kyle really does take some actual effort to study information firsthand in our class. A lot of people will just take secondhand information, but Kyle actually tries to do his best to understand what you're saying. And disagreeing is a difficult thing to do well and keep your personal relationships these days, but Kyle's one of the most respectful individuals I have ever seen in a discussion.
Opinions vary. Okay. So before we begin, please silence your cell phones. I know I got this question earlier in the night. This is going to be online if you want to reference it for some reason. Hopefully our act is just that funny and that entertaining that you just want to show all your friends and family and tell them to come out and join the team as well. But please turn off your cell phones. If you want to reference it later, it will be online, we promise. We have a number of events planned tonight, but to start off, we are going to do a tribute to Susan Houlihan. The event that we're going to be doing is Interpreters Theater, and so it's the closest thing we have in forensics to acting, and so it's a group event. It's considered an individual event because it's not competitive, at the same time, like with a debate. Yeah, okay, Laura will give you more information about it. What's really important and really cool about this event is the speech that they're going to give, this performance they're going to give, is based off of the words from Susan's actual students. So that's going to be really cool, and we hope you enjoy it.
Okay, thank you to Kyle and Nicholas for hosting this evening. So Susan Houlihan has been here for more than 3 decades, and she's been teaching for more than 4 decades. This is her last semester, and we wanted to make sure that there was something that commemorated the contribution that she's made. Now, that is an interesting feat because I have a team of debaters, and for those who are familiar with the forensics community, debaters and interpreters do not always mix with regard to their capacities. Oftentimes they're considered to be flat out mutually exclusive. So I very much appreciate that my set of debaters has agreed to do this. They've had very limited prep, as in just today, to be able to do so. And so give them a little bit of extra gratitude for the idea that they're putting forth their time to do this. Okay, so readers' theater is, as Kyle mentioned, like acting, and the concept is that the interpretation comes from how you say something, not as much from the props, so it begins with very simplistic props, usually entirely black blocks. And now to introduce our individuals who are going to be doing readers' theater: Holly, Sam, Fletcher, the ultimate debater, so this is a huge deal for him, and Olivia. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Robert Kennedy. Finding one's voice is central to being able to stand up for ideals and strike out against injustice. Susan Houlihan has spent more than 4 decades of her life speaking her truth and helping others speak theirs. As the former director of forensics for Santa Rosa Junior College, and as a coach and teacher, she received many awards and consistently helped students achieve state and national recognition. One event that she was particularly gifted at was Readers' Theater. So tonight, as a brief retirement tribute, we present to you Susan, the Ideal.
I was a student of Susan's. I was so nervous. I was afraid of making a mistake, throwing up, not knowing what to say. I couldn't even think of a single topic to speak about. She taught me that I needed to determine what I valued. If I focused on what I liked, I could find my purpose. When the class was over, I realized that in finding what I valued, I discovered my own value and who I was as a person. She planted a seed, and I began to bloom.
I was a student of Mrs. Houlihan. She had married and started a family. She was nurturing and disciplined. I knew what I needed to say, but I didn't know how to say it. She was so particular, regimented. The outline, oh wow. Indented letters, little A's and B's, the right amount of main points. Not too many, not too few. Like the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, it was challenging, but learning structure helped me to see what I needed to do in all of my other classes and in life. She sowed in me the seeds of organization, and I began to bloom.
I was a student of Susan. I was never nervous about speaking, as so many others are, but I lacked creativity. I could speak about anything. The issue was how not to be boring or prattle on. She exposed me to famous speakers and their unique styles. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. I have wasted time, and now time doth waste me. Sure, there's determining what to say and how to say it, but then there's this whole other world of how to be eloquent and inspire, how to breathe life into something already in existence. In me, she planted the seeds of inspiration, and I began to bloom.
I was and still am a student of Susan's. I could have thought about what to say, could have determined how to frame it, could have dressed it up and made it sound more interesting. I could definitely write, I just didn't want to speak. Not even necessarily because I was nervous. I just didn't want to. What was the point? I entered her class after I had lost someone. Not lost as in they've run down a grocery store aisle, or as in I thought that was the love of my life, but lost as in they're gone from this universe. You feel like you never want to speak again. She restored meaning. I didn't just need the confidence to speak, I needed the courage. You know the Martin Niemöller quote, first they came for the Jews, then they came for the gypsies? That was a person who understood complete loss. And yet, he still concluded, then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak. We have a duty, a responsibility to speak out for others, for ourselves. Speaking is a power, a gift. Susan planted a seed right in my heart. Stand up. Speak out. Susan taught me courage, and it still blooms.
I am a student and colleague of Susan's. Susan, I've known you since 1993 when you interviewed me as an adjunct, along with Mark Nelson and Alberta Hart, to teach at SRJC. Thanks for the job. By the way, second thoughts are too late. I've got tenure now, for which I also thank you. Since the beginning, we've enjoyed a wonderful relationship. With you, I've learned, laughed, and developed a love for teaching that I never thought possible. Whether we've been working with graduation speakers, coaching individual event competitors, or discussing how to best meet student needs, gifted and troubled souls alike, my close connection with you added immeasurably to my happiness at SRJC. Thank you. Now, as your new retirement chapter unfolds, I see precious, flickering memories warming my feelings for you and your approach to teaching and life. I see the tender side of an outstanding department chair giving my 8-year-old daughter scotch in her office. No, actually, butterscotch. Candies. Yes, because scotch would be wrong. In her office to an 8-year-old. Yes. I see SRJC debaters going over to your house helping decorate your Christmas tree when you were injured. They did a wonderful job. They loved sharing the holidays with you. I see your wise approach to an appropriate work-life balance. I've respected and adored your loving, committed parenting to your 2 beautiful children. I've seen firsthand how your students and children dearly cherish you. I see your wise approach and hard-fought victories in forensics. I'm a debater too, by the way, not an interpreter. I see your hard-fought victories in forensics, both in competition and in expanded instructor participation, to create the model for a viable, successful program, one that lasted for many years, decades. Finally, I see and savor your shared wisdom in navigating the challenging world of academic politics, being mindful of following proper channels, going from the bottom up, even when the bottom is an ass, as bottoms can be. So, Susan, here's a fond farewell, hoping you enjoy a well-earned retirement. And who knows, if you ever get the urge to come back, you can rest easy if I'm on your adjunct interview panel. I'm privileged to know you. In fact, regardless of who is on your panel, we all know Susan Houlihan. You can rest easy because your considerable skills have always been and forever will remain first-rate. We love you, and we thank you for teaching us about ethos. Hal Sanford wrote that. Value, organization, inspiration, courage, ethos.
Susan helped me.
Susan taught me.
Susan inspired me.
Susan encouraged me.
and she gave us all a voice.
Hal, I bet you thought you were going to get out of here scot-free without getting thrown under the bus, huh? What are we discussing about it? So if any of you guys haven't had an opportunity to work with Susan, you've really lost out. She was really a wonderful person to be around, to learn from, and hopefully someday down the road, after a brief retirement, she comes back to us so that we can continue to learn from her wisdom and from her knowledge and from her experience.
Next up, we have parliamentary debate.
So parliamentary debate it's kind of like the meat and potatoes of the forensic world. Now, interpreters would disagree, but they're wrong, and they can debate me about it if they disagree. But it's a really fun event. You get to work with somebody else, which is fun because sometimes your imagination, your experience, your knowledge is just lacking, and you just get to rest on your partner. And it's a team debate. 4 people. That's about the gist of it.
So we are now going to do some more in-depth introduction on the debaters for the parliamentary round. And of course, that means that we are going to rag on them and then say nice things. So, starting off, we have Holly over here carrying the table, along with Olivia. Wonderful form there. Holly is the future dictator of the SRJC speech and debate team. Holly is a unique individual with a peerless talent for giving backhanded compliments in debate rounds that are so real you can almost feel them. Sass is a strategic component of debate, I promise. And I would have no one else leading this team forward into our argumentative battles next semester rather than Holly. Holly's here for her second semester on the team, having started way back in the fall of 2017 and then coming back to us now. Holly is committed to leading the team as the first club president next semester, and I believe she will bring the perfect mix of dedication, understanding, and fair expectations to create the perfect structure for this team to flourish. Round of applause for Holly. Next up, we have Fletcher, the infamous super debater, kind of a master at it. He's the team's resident pirate. He enjoys long talks about communism, shitposting in discussions, and creating cults. No, really, fun fact, he actually has his own pirate religion that you're all welcome to join for a monthly fee of $7.99, and it's way more practical than Disney Plus. So, join his religion.
It's a good deal.
Fletcher's a longtime veteran on the team, acting as an advisor and assistant for us for over 5 years. And he's just a wealth of information and creative insight who is just an instrumental part of our team and our success. He was sad when they started allowing us to use our phones to prep for debate rounds. He just knew everything that no one else knew.
So, little digression. I once heard Fletcher described as a level 99 dark wizard, and that is fairly accurate.
He does not play fair in debates, which you will probably see. All right, moving on to Olivia. Over there, Olivia is a newcomer to the team, so we don't bully her as a policy. We don't publicly bully members of the team until their second semester. Olivia is a very talented individual on the team who has actually survived being thrown into debate rounds with veterans like Fletcher and hasn't run yet, so that's actually very impressive. Round of applause for Olivia. And also, sorry, Fletcher, I didn't get a round of applause for you, but I'm setting you back because you're too strong.
He doesn't deserve it. Handicap.
And this is Sam. Okay. the only diss I can say for Sam is that they aren't mean enough when debating and they get pushed over. And so they are a very extremely agreeable person, which is a breath of fresh air in a group of debaters. So round of applause for Sam.
Talk more about Parley. All right, so the way this is going to work for parliamentary debate, actually basically every debate, is there's an affirmative side which upholds a resolution, and then there's a negative side which argues against it. So for our affirmative, we have Holly and Sam. They're going to be making the case. After they speak, then we're going to have a back and forth. It's going to go affirmative, negative, affirmative, negative, negative, affirmative. It's pretty easy format to follow, and they're all very competent, so you're in good hands.
On the affirmation today, we have Holly and Sam, and then for the negation, Olivia and Fletcher. And I'll let them discuss the actual name of the resolution, the exact wording, but tonight it is going to be about, let's call it, the consumption of vegan meat. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me in the back? Doing good, yeah? Excellent, love it. All right, I will be starting my time now. Our resolution for this debate is as follows. The FDA will approve initial experiments into lab-grown human meat. I'm going to start by providing some background. Lab-grown meat is also called clean meat or cultured meat. Biopsy, which is a tissue sample taken from a living being. Now, this isn't a completely unprecedented action. Lab-grown animal meats of other kinds have already been produced. The technology is in place to produce lab-grown meat. The first lab-grown beef was consumed in 2013, and ever since there's been a growing market for it. Now, there are several major startup companies with millions of dollars of investment backing. They're all competing in the lab-grown meat marketplace. We, the affirmative, assert that human meat is even preferable to other kinds of lab-grown meat because humans have the power to give consent. So, the affirmative plan is that the United States Food and Drug Administration, or the US FDA, or the FDA, will approve initial experiments into lab-grown human meat for consumption. If we can most compellingly argue in this round that the plan does more good than harm, then the affirmative wins the round. The first advantage of this plan is solving for the harms of the meat industry. Currently, cattle farming is responsible for 40% of the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. And the Amazon rainforest is absolutely vital to absorbing carbon and providing oxygen for our world. Currently, we also have starvation occurring around the world, and with projected population size rising to nearly 10 billion by 2050, we need a more efficient, more sustainable, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly food production method. This needs to happen now, and especially pertains to the meat industry. 14.5% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions also come from livestock, according to the report from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. However, cultured meat can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 96%. They require 45% less energy and 96% less water to produce than traditional meat. For example, one tissue sample from a cow can yield enough muscle tissue to make 20,000 pounds of meat. Now, for some context, 40 million people are currently struggling with hunger-related problems in the United States. If we passed the affirmative plan, then we could begin getting meat from the only animals that can consent to it, humans. The process is easy and relatively non-invasive. All one would need to do is get a safe and common procedure done, a biopsy, to get a sample of cells. Then the cells are multiplied into muscle fibers in the lab where that single sample can produce thousands of pounds of meat. We could safely and sustainably feed millions of people in this way. And this has huge impacts, the possibility of huge impacts. This has the possibility of solving for starvation for millions of Americans. This can also help mitigate climate change by significantly reducing emissions from the food industry and saving important resources like energy and water. Without a response to climate change, millions of people will be displaced by rising sea levels, and we'll see more harsh weather and natural disasters, like the fires that have been occurring recently. Our second advantage deals with reducing holiday stress and improving family unity. Stay with me here. The holidays are a huge stressor and trigger of grief for many people. More than 30% of Americans have felt lonely during the holiday season in the last 5 years, and 88% of Americans say that they feel stressed during the holidays. The top reasons given are spending costs and dealing with annoying relatives. Secondly, a survey from the Wall Street Journal showed that 80% of people believe the country is mainly or totally divided. This is something we get to see on full display at family dinners during the holidays. On top of that, more than a third of Americans are on a specific diet to lose weight or to stay healthy. And guess what? Not only is lab-grown human meat ethical, but it's also ethically vegan, because it's given with consent. It is also cruelty-free, paleo-friendly, keto-friendly, and Whole30 approved. And finally, kitschy holiday gifts are a thing. This will be relevant in a second. So, if we do the plan, then as lab-grown human meat grows in popularity, we might start seeing, I don't know, a theoretical brand that I totally haven't already started working on that's maybe perhaps called Recipes with Grandma. Where you send in your relatives' cells and you get their meat sent back to you, with perhaps a cannibalism-themed cookbook. The impacts of this is that if you are one of the millions of Americans lonely on the holidays, have your family members send you a piece of your favorite aunt so you can feel loved and part of the festivities. If you're really missing Grandma after she's passed, don't worry. If she bought one of the Recipes with Grandma's kits, she can always be there for Christmas dinner. If you're worried about the holidays because how can you provide a wholesome meal on a limited budget when nobody eats carbs? Well, human meat doesn't have carbs. This saves you money, it saves you stress, and it's something almost everyone can enjoy. If you're worried about relatives trying to bring up politics at the table, don't be. I guarantee the food is the only thing anyone will be talking about. The affirmative plan helps to mitigate the catastrophic effects of climate change while feeding a growing population efficiently and effectively. We also save the most animal lives and those of humans and prevent unnecessary suffering, not only of millions of animals, but also of you at your next holiday dinner. If you'd like to reduce the suffering and death of millions, remember to vote affirmative.
Okay, I have one question for you. Do you think that there are any other options other than human meat?
Yes.
And wouldn't you think those options would be more desirable before human meat?
No.
Can you explain?
Humans can consent, and that's why it's the better option. We don't have to take anything from those cute little fluffy bunnies that you see, or those cute little fluffy cows. And we can just take it from Grandma, and I think that's really better option.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Olivia, and I will be covering the negative side of the resolution of the Food and Drug Administration will approve initial experiments on lab-grown human meat. Disadvantage number 1, control. The FDA is already notoriously untrustworthy. According to the Journal of Law, Medicine and Ethics, 90% of new drugs approved by the FDA are no more effective than current drugs. Over the past 30 years, approved drugs have caused harmful or negative side effects even when properly prescribed. Every week, about 53,000 excess hospitalizations and about 2,400 excess deaths occur in the United States among people taking properly prescribed drugs to be healthier, and prescription drugs are the 4th leading cause of death. Earlier this year, the Trump administration decreased the level of accountability in the meat industry by turning inspections over to factory employees. Federal inspections decreased by 40% in the pork industry and has made plans to replicate this policy change in the beef industry as well. Why would this reduction of regulation not apply to a new kind of meat industry? The Internal Labor Organization estimates that there are 40.3 million victims of human trafficking globally. The WHO estimates that 1/5 of all transplanted kidneys, or 70,000 of them, are trafficked each year. The plan passes, and the FDA approves lab-grown meat. The creation of lab-grown meat will be subject to the policies of the FDA, the organization whose rules are directly responsible for hospitalization and death. The lax rule in place by the FDA and the meat industry leave opportunities for sickness and death to occur from tainted meat. We also already know that human trafficking, including human organ trafficking, is a huge deal and growing. Putting human meat on the market, lab-grown or not, opens the doorway to unethically sourced human meat that could come from victims of human trafficking. All these facts indicate an increased risk of serious illness and death and an increased risk of human trafficking. Disadvantage number 2, disrespect to the inherent value of human beings. Uniqueness. Human beings are entities so complex as to be capable of the most creative and free mental activities known in the universe. It would be gross disrespect for such qualitative excellence and the capacity for intense consciousness of being oneself to look at such an entity and see only meat. The plan passes and the FDA approves lab-grown human meat. This leads us into a state of conscious depression because human meat on the grocery shelves reminds us that we are nothing more than fleshy animals and there is no meaning to life. Once we begin to identify human flesh as consumable product, we do not only violate important taboos that serve to protect our dignity, we violate the expectations that all humans are of worth in and of themselves. Without self-worth, people will never be able to fight back against their oppressors. The overlords who already consume our daily lives with manual labor will be literally consuming our bodies. And on to the on case. Okay, so if people truly stopped eating meat, it would, moving on, that was a distraction. Okay, lab-grown meat is becoming more popular in the status quo, which means people get grossed out that companies producing beef, chicken, etc. is also selling lab-grown human meat and react by either boycotting out of protest, refuse to buy out of fear, or this would lead to potential customers of lab-grown meat being turned away and purchasing real beef, which of course most likely comes from the Amazon. The affirmative assumed that the lab-grown human meat was a painless thing. This is not true. Today, all lab-grown meat is produced by using a product called fetal bovine serum, which requires the killing of a cow fetus. And although companies Although these companies say that their products will reduce waste and greenhouse gas emission, they give no detail on how this would be achieved. On a large-scale production, the factory would have to use a lot of fossil fuels. In fact, lab-grown meat would only be worth it if all companies use only renewable resources in their factory, which they wouldn't do because it would just drive up the prices on an already ridiculously expensive burger. Nutritional value of human flesh is terrible. It would take several humans to get as many calories out of your meal as one cow. Thank you.
Would you say that Hitler has an inherent value?
It depends on who you ask. It depends on who you ask.
Excellent, thank you. How would this increase the rise of human trafficking?
Well, if people are already being sold as meat, then obviously there's a pathway there for some of these people to actually have been people at some point.
And how many have died from the diseases that you were mentioning? Do you have a number on that?
Jillions.
Excellent, thank you.
How was your day going, guys? I just got a text from someone asking if the debate was over yet. Baby, it's about to be. Okay. Okay. Nicholas was saying that I wasn't being mean enough, so we're going to try to turn that up a notch. I hope that was sexy enough for you, Nicholas. All right. So we're going to... I know, baby. All right. So I am the member of government. That means my job is basically to stand up here and tell you why my partner is the greatest person to walk this earth and why you should listen to everything they say. And periodically, I'm also supposed to tell you why the other side should rethink their arguments because they're dumb. So we're going to first look at off case, or what our opponents brought up. So their main point was that the FDA is bad. And that is the proof they gave for that was first regarding drugs, basically saying that drugs are dumb, or they potentially kill people. And this is an excellent point. However, the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, and we are looking at the food side. So all their points about drugs are actually totally irrelevant. This is something that they could bring up in a different debate where we're talking about meat, baby. So moving on to their points about meat and the reduced accountability in the meat industry as of late. Well, oh, dang. Well, oh, I didn't start my timer. What time are we at? That sounds super cool. That's like my favorite time. Okay, so regarding the reduced accountability in the meat industry, and specifically the pork industry, this is actually not going to be relevant because this is only under the Trump administration. We're going to have a new president, and eventually these are going to be wrongs that are righted. On top of that, we're talking about an industry that is already set up. We're talking about the raising of animals, the places where they slaughter them, and we're actually going to move the world away from that. So this is actually, we're going to fix this, and as we experiment, we can find the best ways to, the cleanest ways, again, to produce this clean meat, as my partner called it. So we will see meat being produced in labs, and when you think of labs, I don't know about you, but I think about pretty sterile rooms, my dude. So moving on to their terrifying point about human trafficking. Human trafficking is bad, both sides agree on this. No one's like, hell yeah, give me some human trafficked kidneys, baby. Instead, however, we actually solve for this concern much better because we're going to find ways to take cells and to develop them into things that resemble meat or resemble things that we see in our body that we can then use. So we can take one person's, like a little biopsy from their kidneys, and potentially produce, 20,000 kidneys, if it's comparable to the numbers that we're looking at when it comes to meat. So we actually solve for the idea of dealing with this through economics and finding the most efficient way to produce these meats and potentially these kidneys. So we actually do not meet their concerns on human trafficking because it will be more efficient and more economically advantageous for companies to just like prick, a little bit of kidney and then get like 20,000 kidneys. That sounds like a good deal to me. So their only other concern was the potential of tainted meat. If this is in fact a concern, this is something that we as a people can respond to. Again, this is going to be a totally different industry. I don't know where it could be tainted because, again, we're not raising and slaughtering. And on top of that, the people can respond and pressure the FDA if there are any concerns, and we have a process for doing that. So moving on to their second point about the disrespecting humans. So they essentially say that humans are really cool, which I agree, but the reason they bring up was human consciousness. And I think human consciousness is pretty rad. However, when we're talking about my thigh, I don't consider my thigh particularly conscious. And I would not be willing to take a bite of Holly, but I would be willing to take a bite of my juicy thigh. But I won't, because I don't want to offend anybody here. So, regarding their next point, that we will see ourselves as fleshy animals and lose total respect and self-worth, I've already done that, and I'm doing just fine. Also, they basically describe a snake eating its own tail while crying about it. And I don't think this is going to, in fact, be relevant. It's just a sad story they're painting. And also they say we won't be able to overthrow our oppressors if we have no self-worth. But we also won't be able to overthrow our oppressors if we're hungry. So let's get on this right now, guys. Regarding their points on case, it'll turn people away from lab-grown meat in general. This is actually not a concern. If anyone saw the episode from Bob's Burgers, we know that people actually want to know what people taste like. Regarding their concerns on the consumption of fetuses, we're actually experimenting with new ways to collect this. That's the whole point of our plan, is to find ways to collect the necessary cells to produce this. Just because it's a standard within the bovine industry does not make it comparable to how we would do this in people. So regarding their next point, that factories would inherently use carbon, I know we think of the word factory and we imagine these like giant things spewing smoke, but we're talking about labs that would be growing in little petri dishes meat. Everything that humans do in fact creates carbon, but we have the opportunity with our plan to reduce carbon, given the numbers that my partner provided, by reducing the impacts in the Amazon and by reducing the necessary number of cows that we need to make this meat by a huge margin, and reducing greenhouse gases in that way. Regarding the fact that humans are low calorie, listen, I'm already a snack, but now you're just going to make me a low calorie snack, and I don't see a problem with that. Thank you. Okay, no. Hold up. I just want to hammer in the points that my partner made. So we're going to be saving us from climate change, which is like super cool. We're going to be feeding a growing population, which is already suffering from starvation, because we have the opportunity to make meat very quickly and from animals that are consenting, like Lemois. We have the opportunity to save lives, to prevent suffering of animals and people. But let's go on to the most important advantage. The holidays frickin' suck, guys. I don't really know how else to put it. I want to be able, when my Uncle Ted starts going off on a rant on immigration with the strangest conspiracy theories you have ever heard, what I want to be able to do is smile sweetly, stab the steak in front of me that is probably from Aunt Sue, and then go, I guess you're for dinner next year, Uncle Ted. And then I want to just stare at him. And only under this plan do I have the opportunity to do that. So please vote for affirmative, guys. I have needs. Thank you.
So, if the human meat is grown in a lab, how threatened is Uncle Ted actually going to feel? Because you aren't really going to be eating Uncle Ted, you'll be eating cloned meat from Uncle Ted.
It's just the act of stabbing and staring. Most of the work for me, I gotta say.
I see, okay. Did you have anything else? Nothing? Yeah. Okay. So I am the member of opposition, which means it's my job to support what my partner has just said and extend across arguments that have already been made and respond to the arguments just brought up by Sam. So without further ado, I will be going in the same order. That is the affirmative stuff and then our stuff. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We desperately need it. Let's get down to it. So the first thing I've got here is that, of course, the resolution, the FDA will do this thing, start doing experiments. And the first reason I'm hearing out of all this is that, well, we're just curious about eating human meat. And I mean, I'm a little curious too, but that's the risk here, is that everyone is curious, and that leads to all of the negative impacts that we've been talking about earlier. So when it comes to their case specifically, they're talking about how, well, the labs are much better than factories. They're much cleaner, but there's no actual reason why that would be, because the meat industry is already a thing. They already have shipping lines. They already have truckers. They already have deals with grocery stores. So it's only reasonable to assume that human meat, if it were to be grown for consumption, would be produced by the same meat packers that have been running our industries for many years. And I don't know how many of y'all have actually read The Jungle, but it's about how meat packing in general is a very dangerous and potentially disgusting industry, and that's why regulations are so necessary. And this is where we get to the argument about how the Trump administration has reduced regulations on factory inspections for factory farms, slaughterhouses, et cetera. Now, this is true across the board, actually. It's not just for food. It's also for things like environmental regulations, OSHA standards, stuff like that, Title IX. Enforcement is down in the status quo. And the argument I'm hearing is that, well, that's temporary because Trump is only going to be president for a fixed amount of time, and then we're going to go back. However, historically speaking, this is part of a larger trend of deregulation, wherein industries are trying to convince us that we should allow them to regulate themselves. However, as referenced by the jungle example, we know that industries can't be trusted to regulate themselves. I mean, how about this? The cell phone industry regulates themselves. Raise your hand if you actually love your cell phone provider. 1, 2, yeah. Okay, three people, yeah. That's the point. So people cannot be trusted to regulate themselves. The government needs to do it. And as we've seen historically, regulations, once they've been deconstructed, do not get replaced. From our government standpoint, that does not happen. There have been a fewer number of laws getting passed through Congress and signed by the president for every year for the past 20 years. It's been a decreasing trend of our government's ability to even pass new laws. So every time that trend goes downward, that's less of a likelihood that we're ever going to be able to replace these regulations that have been removed. So that's why this stuff is a big deal, and obviously the same industry will be running this. And so that leads us into the issue, the holidays. Yes, so I would argue that if Uncle Ted is that difficult, then maybe you should just uninvite him. I think a lot of us have an Uncle Ted in our family. My family certainly has at least 1 or 2 of those people, and we just don't invite them to the holidays anymore. They've proven themselves to be too difficult to hang out with, and some arguments aren't worth having, and a lot of people aren't willing to actually even legitimately reconsider their worldview, and so there's no point in having that discussion in the first place. You're just wasting everyone's time and making everyone miserable. Uninvite Uncle Ted. No joke. Get the heck out, Uncle Ted. Yeah, so, and that solves for all of this, really, although I do like the idea of threatening Uncle Ted. That's probably not 100% solvent, right? It's not going to work for all Uncle Teds. It's only going to work on some of them. So then we move on to our arguments. The first one I'm hearing here is that the food and the drug of the Food and Drug Administration are very different. First, you can cross-apply my arguments that I just made about how the food part of the Food and Drug Administration is also an issue. Second, you can think about that this is all under one agency. It's all bureaucratically run from a federal standpoint, centralized and all that. So it's hard to imagine how one half of an organization like that could be dysfunctional and the other half could be working. That's not really easy to imagine. So then we move down to the issue of wait, did I switch my sheets around? This is what real debate is like. So then we already made the argument about how this isn't going to move us away from the previous industry. It's going to be an evolution of the previous industry. And as far as it comes to the human trafficking thing, I think what we're talking about here is a potential to make people disappear. And I think that there's certain types of people out there who might want to make people disappear. And that this would make that easier for them. For that same reason, we should stop leaving large pools of like open concrete at construction sites so that people can stop dumping bodies there. So then we move on to the real meat of this argument, which is the disadvantage two about the inherent value of humans. And so what I'm hearing here is that, well, we've all, some of us have already realized that life is meaningless and we're all just flesh bags. And some of us are fine with that. Sam is one of the best people in the debate room because they're so positive with everyone. And so I can understand why they would have that kind of response to this, but not everyone would be just fine with this situation. And it might lead to, I don't know, the dissolution of society. And what that might look like is a crying Ouroboros, as was mentioned by Sam. It was a very clever argument. And I think that what we're talking about here, as was mentioned by my leader in the first place, is that if people don't believe that if we start selling human meat on the shelves, you'll be seeing that on the shelf, and you'll be reminded every time you see it that you're nothing but a packaged product, just like that meat on the shelf. And that will destroy any self-worth we had left that would be necessary for us to rise up against the previously mentioned overlords who, A, not only want to eat us physically, but B, want to eat our souls, metaphorically. And so, since they're already eating our souls metaphorically through the wage labor system, cough, cough, that means that there's nothing that would stop them from physically consuming us once we've legalized lab-grown human meat. Or to put it another way, there are people in this world who are rich enough who, if we legalized lab-grown human meat, would start eating actual humans that they had killed. What's the greatest game? Hunting human, right? That's what this is opening the door to. They will literally be eating us, and that's why you need to vote neg. Thank you.
I don't know if you answered me the first time. How's your day going, Olivia?
Wow. Better now, right? It's almost over. Oh, great, thanks.
How's your day?
It's doing pretty good, my dude. I'm feeling pretty nice. How is your guys' night going? Going pretty good? All right, okay. That's what we like to hear. I'm just going to keep talking until, are you ready to talk? Do you want to talk? No? No, I don't want to.
I feel like I should explain the rebuttal before I do it. Go for it. So a rebuttal is just a chance to further attack your opposing side's arguments. I guess you could say this would be like the meat of the debate. This is what people think about. Yeah. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong. Which I'm right and they're wrong. Just kidding. Vote at your own pace. Okay. So, here we go. Wait, I'm really unorganized. One sec. I'm sorry. Okay, so, in conclusion, if you think about it, by the end of all of this, all we're going to want to do is kill each other. We also think about it, killing someone is illegal. But if human meat ends up to be your only source of meat, wouldn't you rather eat something and kill the person next to you? I mean, it seems like it's going in a circular argument because it's illegal to kill someone, but if our food source, because our population is growing, we need this better source of meat. If we have to kill each other to get it. I don't know if it's as, I don't know. Okay, so I'd also like to go back to, all right, you got out of the car, you got into the grocery store, you're on aisle 1, it's the chips, you're on aisle 2, it's the dessert, you're on aisle 3, it's the meats with your friends, your ex-friends. That could be you. So if you're going down the store and you're having a really bad day and then you see your friend is in a package now, I mean, doesn't it make you wonder about your self-worth? You're already having confidence problems. Oh my God, one day I'm gonna be in a box, eat soon in someone's stomach? I mean, just a thought. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to further talk about how having family around, I personally have an aunt who doesn't have the same political values as I do, but no way would I say to her, next are you for my meal. I also believe that, I also was thinking as Sam was saying this about her uncle, and she might have little cousins, or her aunt or uncle might have children, or anybody younger. What are we setting this next generation up for? Oh, don't worry, you don't like person A. We'll eat them for Thanksgiving next. I mean, are we giving our future generation bad life morals? Like, just kill. So the impacts of this are potential death to humankind from consuming a substance that could be, wait, no. Well, yeah, I mean, I would just like to say that it's unmoral to eat human meat. And I'd also like to tell you all that I became a part of this debate like an hour before it happened, so. Thank you.
Is there already harmful rhetoric at the Thanksgiving dinner table?
Not at my table, because I had invited Uncle Ted.
No violence.
Excellent, thank you.
You did great. That was fun. Thank you.
Stop being nice.
I wanted to say something mean, and then I saw your face, and I couldn't do it. I'm sorry.
How's your guys' day? They love me.
All right, so I'll be doing a speech called the PMR, or the Prime Minister Rebuttal. That's basically the closing speech of the whole thing. I'll walk you through what we like to call impact calculus, where you basically say, here's quantifiable reasons why our case is better and more preferable to their case. All right. And my time starts now. First, I will be responding to some of the points that they raised in their last constructive speech, because this is my first opportunity to do so. They said that meat packing is bad and it's gross, essentially. This is already a problem in the status quo, and it's not being solved either way, under the plan or not under the plan, so it's not a reason not to do the affirmative plan. Also, this is the current meatpacking process. It's currently connected to the meat raising system, which will be helping to reduce under our new status quo. Consumers would be able to demand to have different systems to keep it vegan. They also mentioned how we don't like our cell phone providers, and well, the beauty of the free market is if you don't like your cell phone provider, you just change to another one. That's the whole thing with having self-regulation in companies. It's not necessarily that bad because when you have basically a monopoly, which means that one company is doing all the services, you don't have that choice that you get under services where you have more than one choice. All right, and when they mentioned the rich are going to kill and eat us, this, as you stated, already occurs in the status quo, and it's not a reason to prevent the affirmative plan for passing, especially with all of the advantages to the plan that we already articulated. And the government bureaucracy point that was brought up was actually in direct conflict of your earlier argument about how the government needs to regulate for us. Why would we want them to regulate if they're completely bureaucratic and they don't function well as you stated? Let us have this choice instead. If a business is shady, move on. The same thing applies to how you get your ethically grown human meat. All right. So the affirmative wins on magnitude, meaning the amount of people or the number of people and animals that we help under our plan. This is helping remedy starvation for 40 million Americans. No such numbers were given under the negatives case. They didn't give any numbers, in fact, to the lives that they're saving or preventing, even when asked in cross-ex directly. So we're saving at least 40 million, we have the potential to save at least 40 million people in America alone, as well as absolutely billions of animals. Those numbers of those animals that went uncontested through the entire round, that's 9 billion chickens alone. Those are several million pigs. Those are several million cows. We have the potential to save all of those animals through the passage of the affirmative plan. We will also be something that there's a few things that need to actually be cleared up about this. First of all, we're not murdering people and we're not supporting murdering people. In fact, this has been articulated since the first speech that this is important because of its aspect of consent. Animals don't have the power to give consent. Animals are being slaughtered without their consent. They're having their, even in the lab-grown settings, they're having procedures done to them without their consent. But in the lab-grown meat, in the lab-grown human meat, it's imperative that you have the consent of a human. So you won't be even having your cells extracted through a fairly innocuous process without your explicit consent. And in the last speech, they were saying how you're walking down the grocery store aisle and you see a box of human meat and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just a box of human meat. No, only if you consent to it. That's the whole point of that's the whole point of our case, and this was never addressed throughout the round. This form of meat is the best way that we can get an actual meat product and still have it be as ethical as possible. There is a point being made about the harmful rhetoric at the Thanksgiving table, about the stabbing and all that. First of all, that was a joke. But secondly, if I was going to address that, I would say that there's already harmful rhetoric at your Thanksgiving table. This has already been brought up in the round. And this is not a reason to not pass the affirmative that has the potential to save millions of lives. And you're not murdering people. That's not what this is all about. To pass the meat under the plan just articulates that we're going to approve initial experimentation into growing human meat for consumption. This has the possibility of bringing up tremendous, absolutely tremendous advantages for both food scarcity, the climate crisis, and ethical consumption of meat. And it's not supporting the murder of people. It's a fairly innocuous process, just like it is a biopsy in fact, where muscle cells will be harvested in a harmless way, and then we'll be able to have a sustainable food source for many years to come. For this reason, and all the reasons previously stated, I urge a strong vote for the affirmation. Thank you.
That was different.
Not gonna lie, I was not expecting Sam to come out swinging like that. It wasn't personal, but you won that round, Sam. Between you and me.
Honestly, I got here for sound check, and I was like, what's the topic? What are we debating? I'm like, oh, we're going to eat human meat. And I'm like, what in the world?
No, but once again, for Olivia, actually an hour before speech night, we asked her to sub in. So another round of applause for her and for everyone. So real quick, this is now your chance to vote. So what we're going to do is first we're going to have everyone clap for if they thought the affirmative one. That means pro lab meat, human lab meat. And then we're going to have everyone clap for the negation, which is against the lab meat. Okay, so first for the affirmation, that is Holly and Sam. Go ahead and clap if you think they won. All right. Now everyone clap for Fletcher and Olivia if you think they won. Yeah, so that sounds like the negation won today. So well, that's how elections work now. Anyways, another round of applause for them as we move on to our next event.
Oh, hey, quick reminder, before I forget about this, we have the sheets to sign up out in the lobby. If you signed up already, because we had them up early, then you're going to have to sign again. Just make sure you do that before you leave. We don't want you guys to miss out on any of your extra credit.
You want to talk about the impromptu speech for Holly?
Yeah, sure. Great. So for our last speech of the night tonight, we're going to do an impromptu event. It's one of the coolest events that we do. It's a really exciting event, and for everybody that's watching, if you're doing it, it's actually kind of terrifying, but that's the thrill of it. So Holly's going to step outside here for a minute and... Oh, okay, please.
No. The one I have to wear.
Oh yeah.
I have to put it on while I'm out there.
Yeah, now you're banished.
Holly's banished. So the way impromptu works is the participant is given some words, and from that list, they have 7 minutes total. They have 2 minutes to structure their speech and 5 minutes to give it. And the great thing is you have no idea what your words are going to be, and so it's just rapid fire. You have to have just some real cojones. Is that am I allowed to say that? I said it.
That's a Title IX violation. We're going to cut that.
Anyway, so on to the fun part. We're gonna look for some words, and you guys are gonna give us the words that we're gonna talk about. We don't know what the speech is gonna be about. We have some questions for you, and then as a group, we're gonna figure out the potential topics that Holly is gonna discuss.
All right, so we're going to do this by section. First, everyone over here, I need a noun, just regular noun. Just start shooting them off.
Fist.
Write that down.
Fist it is.
Fist it is. Now I need from... Yo, dude, that was pretty quick, man. We're going to need to talk about this after. I'm concerned. I'll be here. From the middle section here, I need a proper noun. Uncle Ted. All right.
Fist
And-
Uncle Ted. We're off to a start.
And we're not allowed to say that also. Anyways,
Just read
from
them
the
what's on
last
the sheet,
section, yeah, they're not connected. There's a comma in between them. From this last section, we need an adjective. Wait. Speedy?
Is that an adjective?
Speedy.
Would it be speedily?
They said speedy, I thought I
I think
heard.
that's a noun. No, speedy's a... Is it?
The more you know.
I'm not even sure it's a real word.
All right.
Is it
Speedy.
speedy? All right.
All right, now we are going to have someone go and bring Holly into the room, and once she looks at her wonderful list of words you provided, We will start the timer, and she will be able to allot her time for a total of 7 minutes and give a pretty good speech.
If you guys could, maybe just another quick round for Holly, get her pumped up for what she's about to do.
I heard some laughter. I'm a little bit worried.
And once the timer goes off, please provide Holly with silence while she undergoes this gruesome task. All right. And with that, we'll sit down.
No, I'm worried, y'all. I hear that continued laughter and I'm worried. All right, I'm starting my timer now. Oh no. Especially the order they're written in. Fist Uncle Ted Speedy. Dirty, dirty minds. It's gonna be a good one, y'all. And that's my time. Alrighty. Is my mic on? What about now? Yep. All right. The word that I chose for this impromptu is fist. Thank you. The fist has been used in many The fist has been used in many contexts, both throughout history and throughout our homes. The first thing that the fist is a symbol of is power. This is the power of those people that we've been talking about all evening, of our overlords. Those are the people who have the power of the fist to push us down, to hit us like that game of whack-a-mole. No, but this is the power that they have over us. This is the power that the systems of oppression have over us. The fist is used as the fist of those in higher power, the fist used to smite us, to bring us down, to hit us. And to keep us low. The fist basically has a very negative connotation in this manner. It's used for violence. It's used for brutalization and brutality. It's used to perpetuate the lowness of many people in our society. One of the main ways that people are brutalized in our society is through abuse. We hate to face it, but the numbers are there, the stories are there, and they're proving themselves time and time again that there are people being horribly abused in our society, and probably within this room, unfortunately, there are people who have been assaulted in their lives. This is physical assault. This is physical violence against people's body and against people's being, really. It has horrible mental effects, does physical violence, and horrible, of course, physical effects and the potential of disfigurement. Abuse, though, is a huge problem in our society. 1 in 4 women, for example, are abused at some point in their life in one of their romantic or sexual relationships. And like to face it or not, the same thing happens to men as well, of course. This is something that needs to be stopped in our society, but unfortunately, the power of the literal fist has been perpetuated throughout the years and throughout the decades since as far back as we can track. However, the fist does also have the potential to be used as a symbol of power, and a symbol of reclamation of power, and a symbol of reclamation over those that have abused us in the past and continue to abuse us in the present. The symbol of the fist is used for victory when you've won something, when you've won a tournament, when you've won a game. The symbol of the fist is also used for the Black Power movement to say that basically reclaiming the symbol for a group that's faced oppression in the past and now is reclaiming and triumphing over their abusers and triumphing over the power systems that have pushed them down in the past. The symbol of the fist can be used for evil, but it can also be reclaimed for good. Thank you.
Honestly, an amazing speech, especially dealing with a topic that started out with such comedy and making it serious and professional, again, under all that stress and being on the spot. Wonderful job, Holly.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Mr. Fister Guy, for quality content. But really, we need to talk. So at this point, we've come to the end of our events, and I'm going to spill the beans. We have always before been for a while now, been a class at the junior college, the speech and debate team. But this next semester, we are transitioning to being a club, and there are a few changes we want to talk about. I will welcome up again the amazing Holly. I'm sorry, I will help clean this up later. To talk about those changes.
Karen, where are you? Perfect. I'm going to interrupt Holly. Before I do that, as Nicholas just mentioned, we have this next semester going to be transitioning from what has been a class to a club, but we'll still be a team. And so this last semester, the past 2 semesters have been really hard, but this semester has really faced a lot of challenges as many clubs and teams in the JC are facing right now. And so before we move on and we discuss about our future, we just want to pause for a minute and we just want to say thank you so much to Laura. Laura has been such a wonderful help for us. By her sheer will, through most of the semester, she's held us together as a team, facing a future where we don't even know necessarily what's going to happen. She's been there to take us to tournaments and there's really no way that we can say thank you enough. And why are there beans under my feet, Nicholas? I spilled them. Where did you get beans? Laura, can you come up here just so we can just, thank you and just show our appreciation for you.
Be careful, something happens.
Trying to avoid the beans. We have some stuff for you.
Thank you.
I don't know what it is necessarily, but it's going to be good. It's a tree.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
So, yeah, this was kind of a last minute thing. I don't have like a big speech, but everybody just give Laura another round of applause. She's so wonderful. Anything you'd like to say?
I really appreciate the help from all of the students. They've made this possible. They are returning to the tradition of what happened here 100 years ago with students starting the speech and debate team. It can come from within and come from them. And the idea that it's going to move forward is incredibly exciting for the college. And so I appreciate that this is the group that made that a possibility. As you can see, they're amazing to be around all the time. So it hasn't been a job by any stretch of the imagination. And I really appreciate that this would not have happened without Karen Cornwell. It literally was not going to. She was required in order for it to occur. So thank you for assisting me the entire time. And I'm very fortunate to have had you by my side.
Okay, so moving back on track, Holly's going to come up here. There's some things to say about the future, I guess. And so a big round of applause for Holly. And again, thank you all so much for coming out here and supporting us tonight.
Hello, y'all. I'm back. So, if you want to participate in these antics and more, please come and join the speech and debate team. We're actually totally open to all enrolled students. I wrote the club constitution, that's what it says. We're also a competitive team. That's going to continue into the spring. So we'll be competing at states and at nationals as long as we have enough people to attend. So if you feel like any of these events appealed to you, or there's about like 12 more, please come talk to me maybe after this. And we can talk, and hopefully you can find enough time to join the team next semester. We're meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1:30 to 3 next semester. Thank you.
We'll be meeting in room 691T out by Shuha, or in the parking lot. The Annalee Temps, that's what they're called there. And as well, we welcome you all to come down and talk to us. You're basically free to go, but we'll be around down here to talk about any of the events.
And just again, one more time, guys, if you signed up earlier, make sure you sign your name again. We had to renew the list to keep it fair, so.